This is the Education Business Podcast for consultants and business owners providing services in schools. I'm Claire Riley, and I'll be sharing how to start, grow and scale your education business. Welcome to the Education Business Podcast. Today we're going to talk about self-care and when it's toxic, actually. And you know when you just know that you're going to say something that might get you cancelled? Well, this is one of the things. Self-care, can it be toxic? Yes, I believe it can. And I don't want you to think that I'm not into self-care or anything like that. I am. I know that it means lots of different things to lots of different people. But as an entrepreneur who has been around in business for quite a long time now, probably longer than you if you're listening to this, and also I've been through the pandemic with you all, I had very young children in that time, I can totally get why we buy into this idea of self-care. And I don't for 1 minute think that we shouldn't care for ourselves. But I do think it's very easy for us to use it as an excuse sometimes. And the reason why I say that is because I've got my own experience of it. I think we can get to a point where we feel like we're the victim and we can say, well, I'm not going to do this because I need to care for myself. Or it's all about self-care. And we can use it as an excuse to put off things that we should really be doing. And it's nothing to do with self-care at all. What we're actually doing is saying, I like being comfortable. And I could use the self-care excuse to stay more comfortable right now rather than getting uncomfortable. And it's so easy to use self-care in those sentences when it's nothing to do with self-care at all. And so that's what I call the self-care trap, when we believe that we're feeling really overwhelmed. And so then we move all of our deadlines to make ourselves feel comfortable. And I have done that a lot before. And I could easily do that now because I've got a lot going on at the moment. I've got a lot going on in both businesses. Also, we've had sickness with the kids. They've both had birthdays and there's parties to plan. They always have more than one party, don't they? Oh, then all the friends are having birthdays at the same time. There's the school holidays and we try and be present in the school holidays. There's 7 weeks coming up. We've just had a week. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to get done. And if I'm really honest, I'm feeling it. I am feeling it. And I could turn around and say, oh, I'm going to cancel X, Y, and Z, particularly in Education Business Club, because that's my startup business. It's not my core business. I don't want to. And I feel like I've gone through this transition phase where I've been really hard at it, workaholic. Then I've got more into a self-care place. And now I've transitioned to like a hybrid, really, where I can recognise when self-care is maybe toxic and not be afraid to step back into the hustle mode, which I probably was scared of for a little while, perhaps because of how tired I become. And I wanted to share this with you because maybe you've experienced this, maybe you're experiencing it now. I know that a lot of you probably feel overwhelmed, like I'm feeling overwhelmed. Now, the reason why we feel overwhelmed is when we have lots of tasks that we believe have to be done at the same time. That's really what overwhelm is. So being overwhelmed is not actually real as long as we can get our brain to understand it. So how do you not fall into this self-care trap then? This way of thinking that means you just put everything off and you say it's because you're trying to look after yourself and you're doing the right thing for you. And why should we not fall into that trap? Well, let me start with that. That's when we don't see the progress in our businesses. When we put deadlines in or put goals in, and then we change our minds. And maybe we change our minds because we didn't set a goal that was right in the first place. Maybe it was unachievable, but we're always pushing things on. Well, I think one of the ways to not fall into that trap is to notice the momentum that you're creating. So it might be that you've not really created much momentum and then you will find this harder. But when you notice the momentum and you think about the possibility of losing that momentum, that can help you. So for example, because of all the things that I'm juggling right now, it would be really easy for me to say, Education Business Club is still a startup business. I'm going to put that on hold for 6 months and I'm not going to do the live sessions that I've planned to do. But I recognise the momentum that I have started gaining in the business and I don't want that to stop. I've planned things in because I wanted to do them, because I knew it would be good for business growth. I knew it would be good for customers. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the momentum that I'm gaining. If I were to go back 2 years, when I was in more of a self-care victim role, I suppose, I probably would have just cancelled it. And I'm not doing that, even though it's really hard to fit it in. Really hard. Another thing you can do to not fall into this self-care trap is to prioritise based on a plan and goals that you believe in. So you're going to go through your list and you are going to push some things on. It's not about trying to do everything, because not everything is possible. But when you're prioritising based on a plan and goals that you believe in, it makes it possible. So for example, there are certain things that I'm doing at Classroom Secrets now. They all need doing all at once. But I have to accept that's not possible. And I have to be able to prioritise what's important to do and then communicate that with the people who need that communication. And acknowledging that maybe everything does need to be done at the same time, but it's not possible, and why I've prioritised things in that particular way. But I can prioritise those things because I know the plan that I believe in and I know what the goals are. It's the same for Education Business Club. There are certain things that I can push on and it really isn't important, but anything to do with what I'm delivering and reaching more people to actually benefit from those sessions, that's a priority for me. And it's working out carefully which are the important things and which aren't. Because when we're in a state of overwhelm, it's really easy to sit down and spend time every day replying to emails when maybe that's not the thing we should be doing, or ending up on social media because we've just done a social post. And that's not necessarily the thing that we should be spending our time on. The next thing you can do is look at how you can use your time differently. So I'm a big believer in creating time. So right now, I am working some evenings. I am getting up an hour earlier most days to try and get through some stuff that needs to be done. But it's not forever. And I'm trying to manage it really carefully so I don't overdo it. But I'm not scared to do it. I think we can get to a place where maybe we've had certain success in our business and we've got to a place where we feel like we've got the status quo and then we don't want to undo that. But actually, living through that can cause more pain in the long term. So thinking about short-term pain for long-term gain, that's the key. And really analysing how you use time, when is your best time for certain tasks, that's really, really important in order to be able to deliver on your priorities. Because if we don't do that, it's easy to have loads of priorities and not do them, and then it gets worse. It just gets worse and worse and worse, and you have more and more things that needed to be done yesterday. And on that, this is not about running yourself into the ground. You're going to feel tired throughout this process. Try and do what you can along the way to make sure you sustain yourself, like actually getting enough sleep, making sure that you're not low on your vitamins or minerals or anything like that, eating well. But also, what's the reward? Is the time off coming? Do you have a day in where you're going to have that day off, something to look forward to, a meal out, a party, a day trip, a time when you're not going to work? Lean into the reward and look forward to that. The next thing you can do is understand that it can't be perfect. That's not how we get lots of things done. We're not looking for 100%, we're looking for 90, 95%. And we can always make things better from there. But if you want to deliver a lot of things in a short space of time, no, it can't be perfect, and then it's more important to get the thing done. And talking of getting things done, the last one is taking action when you are procrastinating. I'm noticing myself procrastinating at the moment. And if I'm honest, I know there are times where I could be productive, but I just feel overwhelmed by everything that I've got to do and I'm not productive. I am procrastinating. And so what I'm trying to lean into is taking some kind of action, even if it's not necessarily one of the actions I need to take. Maybe I don't have the brain space, or maybe the kids are around and I can't do something that requires creative work. But what is something I can take action on? And I try and think of it that way so that I'm moving through all of the things that I've laid out are a priority. Because if I don't do that, my business isn't going to grow in the way that I thought it would. I'm going to let life circumstances change my business outcomes. Now, you might be in a stage of life where you say that's okay. And I would say if you've got young children, perhaps instead of listening to this episode, you need to think about reevaluating what's actually achievable at this time in your life. But if you've not, if you've moved on from that, and that's where I feel I'm at now, I've moved on from having babies in the house, we can be really held back unless we change the attitude again. And following these steps will help you get the result you're looking for, which is your business will actually move on massively. And it makes complete sense when you think about it. We can be busy, but if we're not working on the right things, we're not going to get the results we want. All this forces us to do is look at the tasks that are actually going to get us where we want to go, and look at the tasks that are not going to get us where we want to go, and prioritise those that actually make a difference. So I hope this episode has been helpful. Go have some self-care. I'm not saying don't self-care, and we all self-care in different ways. But do raise your awareness. Do ask yourself the question, have you come to use self-care as a defense mechanism? And is that holding you back in your business journey? Is it stopping you from moving forward? Because that's when it's toxic, and that's when we need to take action. Thank you for listening to the Education Business Podcast. To get more information to grow your business, sign up at educationbusinessclub.co.uk.